This is the One Step Better podcast. Helping small businesses make wins each and every week. Hey everybody, welcome back to the One Step Better podcast. I'm Mike, and hello, Matt.
Hey man, what's going on? Looking forward to our podcast. This is gonna be a good one today.
This is going to be a good one. I'm excited for it. It's going to be a fun times. Matt, would you rather have to live in space or live under the water, like under the sea? Under the sea.
The idea of living in space is that sounds pretty intriguing to me because just the vastness of it. That means you can live anywhere. And like I watched Martian recently, and they're like going back and forth to Mars 3 times basically, and you're like, how it'd be pretty neat to see that. Under the water, I think there's some pretty far depths of the ocean.
No kidding.
It's pretty dark. I don't know. I think I'd like to do this space. You?
I think I might go to space too because I know there's not sharks in space.
Well,
I mean, I'm pretty confident. I would think we would have at least seen a shark or something that's going to get
we
us.
haven't seen the aliens yet, but we know they're there.
Yeah, Mexico rolled out their aliens. They and I think it was a governmental meeting of some kind. They brought in.
That was totally
This
politically
is-
incorrect,
this is a
Mike.
little bit
I'm not going to
different.
comment on the.
The Mexican government brought in aliens.
Okay.
Google it. This is a question that we posed to our team in Huddle a while ago, and it was interesting to hear some of the feedback and the opinions of the people on the team because some people were pretty adamant they would rather live under the water, under the ocean, and some people were, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. So it's pretty different. The reality is a lot of times we frame these types of questions to generate fun conversations, and it's a fun debate sometimes. But it's really polar opposites. One of those polar opposites that you hear debated around the business world is I need my people to have soft skills or I need my people to have hard skills. And a lot of times we put those on 2 ends of a spectrum and we don't really pay attention to the middle ground. And so as we continue our series about all things people, today we're going to talk about developing people's soft skills versus hard skills. Now, I'll be the first to say I don't like the term soft skills because there's not really anything soft about things that we typically identify as soft skills. And this is something that we're trying to figure out. This is more of an exploration of a conversation more than us telling people from a position of experience or authority or expertise on this is what you should do, because this is an area that we've talked about for a long time on how we're doing this inside of our organization. And it's something that we are about to revamp and hit on again. And so we're going to try to flush out some of those ideas during the podcast today. And so, Matt, whenever you think about what's commonly referred to as soft skills and what is referred to as hard skills, what are those things? Can you help define those?
It's as much as leadership skills. It's, helping them with difficult conversations. It's helping them with coaching and developing their team. This could be their own personal time management. It could be their coaching abilities or their advisory abilities. Even though those are somewhat hard skills, some of those are along the lines of how to be inquisitive and how to ask the right questions, how to be a good listener. All those skills correlate into being a better, in our world, accountant or advisor or consultant or coach. But, this is something that we constantly struggle to balance on. How much is it when you work on the technical side of what we do and the how we do it, not why we do it?
Yeah, I think of how versus what a little bit. Soft skills I want somebody to understand how to think, how to behave, how to problem solve. People skills is a big part of that. I want to see your decision-making process. How did you go about doing that? I think a hard skills is more about what I need to do from a somewhat of an objective position. In our world as an accounting firm, payroll company, insurance arm, all the stuff that we do, there's an objective person that can come in and say, hey, that's right, or that is wrong. If we file a tax return for somebody and put a wrong number on that, there's a bit of a math thing that you can look at that and say,
you did not follow the law.
That wasn't right.
You either do it this way, which is correct, or you do it this way, which is wrong. Very easy and clear.
Yeah. And so it's a little bit more objective, and there's more of a what that comes with it. And it is easy for us, because it is objective to focus on the hard skills because I can tell you what you did is right or wrong. And even that might be even true if we have like a standard operating procedure for something that's maybe not legal or law abiding. But you did the things you were supposed to do or you didn't do the things you're supposed to do. It's a little bit harder to come in and say, hey, you know what, the way that you interacted with that client isn't appropriate because of maybe your behavior or your personality or the tone, the words that you're saying.
You didn't ask the right questions, which got to finding the true result they were looking to, the question they were really asking. You didn't get clarification on what they were looking for. You didn't problem solve enough to get to where, or ask the difficult questions you need to ask to get to the root of the problem. Very common. I think the thing we struggle with this in our world is there's so much training to do, already with technical. And so balancing and having the appropriate amount of time available and not taking on too much production time and the balance of that, but as we start to frame this idea of, the balance between technical and non-technical training, in my mind, I feel that the non-technical training actually will produce larger results than the technical training will.
A little bit. I don't, when you say balance them, I think about a seesaw where there's something on one end and something on the other, and you're tipping a scale. I don't think that's the right approach. I don't think we should try to balance them. I think they're all interwoven. It should be a little bit of like it's a big old conglomerated mess. Because if I teach somebody tax code and I teach them how to deliver the results of that tax code with empathy and understanding with our clients, those things are somewhat connected.
Absolutely.
And so I don't want to focus on, all right, this week we're going to learn about how to use this software. And then next week we're going to talk about how to manage your time. Like, they have to be interwoven to some extent. I need you to learn how to use this software in a time management capacity understanding.
Yep.
And so it's, for me, that's what's hard about it, is because if I bring on a new hire, I want that person to be a rock star from day one, and it's my responsibility to help them get to that point. But I also just need them to understand some nuts and bolts.
Yep.
And it is hard to spend enough time doing that in a way that's budget conscious and not, that other person is like, this is not what I signed up for.
So right now we're going through this exercise in our leadership team, but also as part of our kind of big goal for the year, which is leadership development of our people. And it's come up. It's like how much, how fast, how often, who's involved, what's our expectations of production work that we expect each person to be able to do that's in a production role. And it's very challenging to understand I say balance again, it's the balance between doing productive work and training, or the balance work between doing administrative work, production work, training, time off, own development, team development, all the other things. And it's just, it's definitely a struggle.
Yeah. So our friend Tyler Thompson, he owns an accounting firm up in Indianapolis. He helped me understand this a little bit better from the standpoint of, the time that we're spending investing in our people, training them on whatever it may be, whether that's technical or non-technical work, is not an expense. It's an investment. That is something that we expect to pay dividends down the road. And with that mindset, with that shift of mindset for me, it helped me not feel like, if I spend all day training people for the first couple of weeks that they're here, then that is a waste of time, because it's really not. It's an investment in the future. Now, that gets a little bit harder whenever you start to factor in, did I hire the right person? At what point do I realize, maybe they're not a good fit? Or even if they just decide to walk out the door at some point, it hurts a little bit more.
Yep.
And it's sometimes I can let the pain of what, may be lost down the road prevent me from going all in with somebody today.
Yeah, I agree. And I think most of us get lost in the day-to-day and don't think sometimes the big picture. Like, the book Death by Meeting is somewhere like all the meetings we have, or if you're having too many meetings or the non-productive meetings, those are truly, if you're having effective meetings, they're an investment because you're working on making your processes more efficient, or your training, or whatever it may be. And I think it's very short-sighted to not put the investment into the development of your team in all areas. And I think it's easy to say, well, I don't want to take any more of their time away because da 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 da. But I don't think you are. In the long run, you're not taking away their time. You're investing that time today to get a return later. And it could be more revenue. It could be more efficiencies. It could be challenging to a process, whatever it may be.
Business owners, do you have a clear picture of where all your money is? Are your taxes getting taken care of on time? Clarity and consistency are key when it comes to getting the most out of your books. With detailed monthly financials and ongoing advisory services, Patrick Accounting is here to help you make more money and keep more of it. Learn more at patrickaccounting.com.
What are some of the things you've done or you think that we should do to help develop our team's people smarts?
Yeah, I think it's multifaceted. We talk about, leaders are readers. And so having an emphasis on reading and books that help them maybe conquer some tasks, which would be like having difficult conversations, or it could be on coaching and developing of their team, or it could be how to run a better one-on-one, or it could be how to deal with a disgruntled client, or challenge a client to meet expectations, or like whatever it may be. I think as I start thinking through the topics that I would want our team to be developed on, it really a lot of times is just how to deal with people better. And so all those conversations are tied around, how do you have empathetic conversations with a busy business owner who isn't reporting on time or isn't doing a good job of communicating with our team, or I have to break them bad news. All those things are going to go around that same area of people smarts for me.
I think, you mentioned, how do I break the bad news to a client? I like that's a really good example of technical and non-technical are not on opposite ends of a spectrum. I can't deliver that news without having some technical expertise. I also can't deliver that technical expertise without having a little bit of sympathy and expect it to go well.
Right.
And so those things have to be intermixed. I think of application, right? I can stand up here and speaking to the microphone about, this is how you do a math equation, and I can give you some step-by-step instructions on how to do that. At least, I don't know, maybe I can't, but I know somebody could. But that's a little bit different than you're taking it to the next level of saying, all right, Mr. Landscaper, that needs to be able to define the area of a yard so that you order enough sod to get everything down. Like the application of that skill is really where those two things meet a little bit. It's both the soft skills and the hard skills are going to intersect at application. And being able to provide examples of real life things that we've ran into is helpful for people to understand. All right, now I can connect the dots, because I don't ever want our team to sit into, let's say it's going to be a leadership seminar on how to make better decisions, and they're sitting there and they're learning. All right, step 1, step 2, step 3 of better decision making, and then walk out of that thing and never connect the dots between. All right, when a client calls and asks you a question, that you have a decision to make, and here's some some of the application that comes with that.
We talk about this all the time. It's okay to say I don't know, but I'll go figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's coaching our team on how to handle what they would consider as like they feel like they have to know everything when they walk into a meeting, and you're like, well, that's not realistic. You're never going to know everything. The tax code is very broad, or the situations come up that we haven't seen before. We have to know how to problem solve. You have to communicate effectively that it's okay and feel confident to say, I don't know, but you've also given the confidence that I'm going to go figure it out and I'll get back to you at this time. And then you do that. That is empowering to them. And then learning that it's okay to say that. The same way as like, hey, you missed a tax projection at year end, something came up, something changed, you didn't anticipate it. Now the client owes $50,000 more of tax time. And this is a client that doesn't have any money or doesn't have the ability to pay this. And you have to say, this sucks, and I know it sucks. Here's what happened. Here's why it happened. I know it sucks. Here's the actions you can take. Here's here's some things that are some options you can do that you owe $50,000. And I am empathetic enough to know that I'm telling you bad news, and it's bad news. I think of Moneyball when Billy Beane is going to release a player. He goes, these are all professionals. They know, hey, you got to be just point blank, or when you have to let somebody go. If I'm developing a leader who has never terminated somebody before, we have to coach them on how that works. Here's why we do it this way. It's one of the hardest days in their lives. It's going to be a hard day in your life, but it's going to be a really super hard day in their life. Have the empathy that that this sucks, and treat them how you'd want to be treated. All those are skills that are not something that comes up in a tax training.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and if you're hiring, I'll say younger people that they may have never been exposed to anything like that before. I've had plenty of people that's come through here that they've never fired anybody.
Yeah,
they don't know.
I never done it until I started here.
And that's an absolutely hard, difficult thing to do. And the IRS doesn't have a publication on how to terminate somebody, and so it takes somebody to put their arm around you and say, hey, all right, we're going to figure this out. We're going to do this together. Here's kind of some of my experience, and we're going to go in and knock this out. I remember when I did that with Kim, and it was so great because the person on the other side of the table, Kim had never fired anybody before. She's like, I'm nervous, Mike. Can you help me walk through this with me? And so I did. And the person on the other side of the table just said, thank you. And I was like, this is the best firing that could ever possibly be the case.
They didn't cry, hold onto the wall, throw a fit, throw their stuff. That happens when I do it. No.
Yeah, they didn't. So it was, which was just perfect. Matt, why do you think people shy away from coaching and developing their team's soft skills? I wish there was a better term for that. I hate that.
Well, I'll say it. The first thing that comes is they feel inadequate to teach them.
Yeah.
They don't have the confidence to know. They don't have the resources to know where to go get help to help coach and develop them. They don't want to come across as condescending. They don't want to come across. It can be difficult if you're having a person who's having a trouble communicating effectively with their clients. You have to coach them on that, but they may not take that with the corrective criticism that you want to provide them. But I really think that most people just feel inadequate in their ability to do that. They don't necessarily think they have their own skills to help others do those things.
I know that for me, it may be that I feel like that's something that I'm not good at. So how dare I be the person to teach you? Like if I said
Imposter.
Just to make something up, it's I may. All right, so let's say that you go off on a client and you're frustrating, or maybe you just give bad advice, whatever, and you know what? I might have some of that same tendency, and so I feel like a loser coming to you and saying, hey, Matt, you did this wrong, whenever I know in the back of my head, you could easily flip that around and say, well, yeah, but you do that the same exact way all the time. It's almost like, hey, I feel pretty bad about pointing out a speck in your eye when I have a giant toothpick in my eye. That's not something that I'm super comfortable to do. And so it's easy just to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to let it go because I don't want that position of inadequacy, or even I don't want the tables flipped back around on me.
Yeah, I get that. I think about the circumstances like that. Usually I know I didn't handle it as well as I should have. But I think if it's done with, hey, look, this is somewhere we all can improve. I think it's how you deliver the message.
Sure.
I think about our team right now where we have a lot of younger leaders, people that are either new to their leadership roles or they're developing into a new leadership role. And I know that they have the possibility of running into a lot of circumstances they haven't run into before. I think it's super important that we understand and coach and develop them into that role from not just they're now leading people, for instance. They never, if you're a new manager for us, you really haven't led another person on a team. You haven't had to be responsible for all the work being done, or you haven't had to own the client relationship that you have. Or if you're on a onboarding team today, you're in our world, every circumstance is just so different. And so knowing how to coach and develop them on how to work with different types of personalities and have empathy that the client is super busy and has all these different things going on, and we're just one of those things, or their ability to make the client engage with them with the idea of change. So like they have to kind of galvanize them into change. All those are skills that are soft, right? And I think those are soft skills, but that is the development that every person will go into at different phases of their career, and you want them to do it in the way that the firm, in our world, the firm's way of handling those things, to best encourage them to, I say, we talk about guardrails all the time. These are the guardrails we live by. Here's why they're guardrails. And let's make sure we explain the why and all that things. and it's something that it's hard to repeat enough, and every person a little different. Circumstances come up differently, so it's definitely a challenge.
One of the things I do think we have kind of going in our favor a little bit with this stuff as we're starting to kind of revamp some of this stuff internally is the kind of the people that we hire. Kind of we changed our hiring process to really identify people smarts, humility, a hunger, which is indicative of the right kind of person that's going to accept coaching, is going to accept, somebody's putting their arm around them and saying, hey, look, this is something I've screwed up before, but let's look at how we can do these things better. And so I feel like as we get into this, we're not going to run into that roadblock or hurdle of my people just won't listen. They don't care, and I think that's going to be something that's set us up for success to some extent. It's helped with the hiring process, but even our, the values that we have and we talk about over and over and over again, the type of people that accept coaching are the type of people we want on our team.
Yep.
They believe in accountability. They desire accountability. They want to know how they can get better. And that goes a long way on helping the leader figure some of that stuff out if they've never been in that position.
Yeah, thirst for learning, thirst for getting better, thirst for wanting to improve things, challenging status quo, all those things that are values that tie to our master values, which is I want people that are like lifetime learners, people that want to continue to improve things, aren't okay with just the way things have always been. The question I think about right now for us is, what are some of the tools, or like we talked about, maybe even like where should we get some of the resources we need to develop these skills? And we talked about reading. We've talked about, probably a lot of one-on-one coaching and even some group training and maybe finding out. So what are your thoughts around that? Like what should we be looking at?
Yeah, I think back about whenever I was in grad school and I was in an internship program that was a little bit about leadership development. There was a consistent feeding of books. It was, hey, you need to read this book. And then you weren't left on your own to just go read that book. There was a coming together of, hey, let's talk that through, and good questions, critical thinking type questions. Like, did you agree with this? Did you not agree with this? Where would this work? Where would it not work? A variety of kind of book study type things with that. There was also, today I listen to a lot of podcasts on leadership, almost to the point where it's like too much. And some of it's just like, this is just another leadership podcast.
Some sports. Come on,
right?
Man.
Yeah. And it's also the type of people you hang out with. In 5 years, you're going to be different based on the people that you hang out with. And if I'm going to hang out with somebody who is always a Debbie Downer, pulling me down, or always negative, well, that's going to at some point, interact in my life. And I want to be careful about that, because ultimately the person that I want to be in 5, 10, 15, however many years is going to be influenced by those people. And so for me, it's not just this isn't a work thing. This is a personal development thing. I want to be a better person. Here's the skills that I want to have. This is who I want to be. And so I need to find every resource, whether it's a book, a podcast, or hanging out with people that exhibit those traits. I want to immerse myself in a world that's going to hopefully encourage me into those things.
I think of some self-awareness tools too. So I start thinking through even understanding your disc better, what moves you, helps you learn, how you learn. Are you an auditory learner, a visual learner? Your Colby. I think self-awareness for me on my Colby has helped me a lot with how I interact with people and my expectations, how I do things and how my natural tendencies are different. And that's okay. I just have to know that if how they do things and how I do things is perfectly fine, but the result's the same.
Yeah.
I think self-awareness is big in this stuff. As we're starting to develop our plan, our goal is, I think this begins with, in our world, new hires that are in every role in our organization, from our front desk to a CSS, still want to have effective communication, do a good job of managing time. So there's a curriculum that's for everybody. And then there's just specific tracks for people in different roles to make sure they get some skills they're going to need to have right away or improve upon right away. And so
I think about that in the context of how we currently have things set up. Our new hires are going through a good bit of video-based training on company culture, who we are, our mission, our values, the things that we're trying to accomplish, that type of stuff. that all that could really be beefed up on some additional skills that we need every person in this organization to be mindful of. I want to help you understand how to think, how to behave, how to feel about your work here, not out of a sense of control, but out of a desire for alignment. I want people that are all going the same direction. It lifts everybody whenever we're all moving in that same direction.
It was really interesting how this came up for us. It turned into we're not doing a very good job of being consistent in our one-on-ones between our team, and we have a number of new people doing one-on-ones now with teammates they have not done them with before, as we've developed and changed kind of who as our leaders have developed. And so it came about, it's like, what's your agenda for one-on-one? Well, this is my agenda. Well, we already had this agenda, but you didn't know about it? No, we didn't know about it. So then you're like, well, then it turns into, well, what's the role of the one-on-one?
What was our goal? What are we trying to
achieve? And then it turned into, well, we're not doing a good job of being consistent amongst the team. We don't have very clear ideas of what a one-on-one should even look like. And so they're all vastly different. Well, that is at the detriment of the person who's getting the one-on-one. The goal of a one-on-one in our world is how to help them improve and meet expectations, or, how do they win? And then we find out, like, wait, we're not winning as leaders because we have done a terrible job of developing our leaders in that area. And so it's kind of interesting how this evolved for us. I find that I'm really thankful that triggered a bigger thought process of how we're developing leaders, and that's where we're going. I think it was brilliant, and I hate giving that word because I know who it came from. It was Mike, but yeah, that made so much sense to me as I thought about it. It's like I had some of these things early on from when I was at other firms, and I was like, those skills I didn't think about at the time being super valuable. Now I think that time management is a big one. How you block your time, how you hold your calendar accountable to what the priorities need to be. How do you say no? How do you effectively say no? All those things go into that. Well, if we don't teach and develop on it, we get right now 38 different ways of how to do things.
Yeah, I think this whole leadership development thing, as we get into it's I like analogies. It's going to be a little bit like a lighthouse on the shore. We have everybody going in different directions, and the more that we could develop our leaders, the brighter that light is going to shine, to be able to point out the areas that they're maybe going a little bit off course, not in the channel, whatever it may be. And hopefully it's going to be able to shine some light on where things are going to run aground before we ever get to that point.
This is an area I think a lot of businesses can definitely spend more time to think about. I think you should incorporate it into your overall training and development of your people. Don't get too focused on technical. Technical is going to always be there, but I think you'll see a lot bigger return on your investment in the non-technical training that you do, and you'll see the scale that you want to see.
Absolutely. Well, Matt, thanks for having the conversation with us today. And for all of our listeners, I appreciate you tuning in. If you have some feedback for us on, if you've maybe developed some leadership skills or leadership development paths within your organization, we would love to hear from you. So you can reach out in the comments of, your favorite podcast player, and we'll get in touch. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Thanks for listening to the One Step Better podcast. I'd really appreciate it if you would take some time to rate us 5 stars on your podcast player of choice, and make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you never miss out on another episode. Thanks, and have a great day.